How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of Bear Down Uncut, where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Who is the most underrated player on the Bears? Who is the key new addition? We're going to be answering these questions and many more today in episode 32 of Uncut. Welcome back to the show, guys. I've said it in the beginning of every episode this week, but if you are new to the channel stumbling upon this video and you want more Chicago Bears content, please do us a favor, subscribe and click the bell for notifications whenever we post. We are trying to get out content every day of the week, and we're really trying to hit 1,500 subscribers by the end of this weekend. I am your host, Chris Malpe, and today I'm joined with my co-host, Parth Shaw, on a very gloomy day. Parth, how's it going, man?
I woke up, just been doing a lot of schoolwork. Got a week of school left, I think. We end off next Monday, so just trying to grind out senior year, ready for college now.
Senior year of high school, man. So what we're going to be doing today is basically going through this trend on Twitter and applying it to the Bears. Parth actually brought it to me, and it's something that a lot of people have been doing on Twitter recently. For all of you Twitter birds, you would probably know about this. So we're going to be naming the most overrated, underrated, best player, key new addition, player that could surprise, player that takes a leap, and prove-it-year player for the Bears. People have been doing this on Twitter once again for all of their teams this week. So let's just hop right into it. First, we've got most overrated player, and I'm going to go with Jimmy Graham here. He is a 5-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, and he hasn't stepped on foot on the field for the Bears yet. But that being said, he's still gaining age and still is regressing. Obviously his best year probably came in 2011 when he had 1,310 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns. Also 16 touchdowns in 2013. That being said, he's continued to regress basically since 2016 when he had 923 receiving yards. His receiving yards have gone down every season since, except he had a pretty decent year in 2018. Obviously the Bears tight ends weren't that great in 2019, and I think Jimmy Graham's going to provide an upgrade for sure, but I still think a lot of Bears expect him to be some incredible red zone target, and I'm not saying he can't be that, but I'm just saying he's getting old and his production has gone down, so I admit that I think he is a little bit overrated by some people. Parth, what do you think? Who's your most overrated player on the Bears?
I said Tariq Cohen. Last year, many expected him to take another big jump from his pretty decent year he had actually in 2018 where he had 700 yards receiving, 400 yards rushing approximately. And he took a huge regress. All those numbers basically got split in half. He only had 200 rushing yards last year, 450 catching yards, receiving yards, my bad, and 3 touch. And he took a huge fall, and so did the whole offense in general. But I feel like a lot of people in the league just overrate Tariq Cohen's gadgetness, I feel like, for the Bears.
Yeah, absolutely. Cohen's been someone who's been getting some heat, especially here on the show recently, so that clearly doesn't stop here in Uncut 32. Next, we've got the most underrated player, and I'm going to go with Anthony Miller. He's 5'9", 200 pounds, entering his, I believe, 3rd year in the league. He's had 9 career touchdowns in Chicago, and is someone who I really think is going to blossom into a wide receiver 2 this year. I still think he'll play from the slot a lot, but he's going to get a ton of targets, 54 targets his first year, went up to 85 in 2019, and I expect that'll continue to increase in 2020 regardless of who's at quarterback. Had a slow start to the year last year, only 2 touchdowns, but really had some good games as far as receiving yards go as the season continued. He caught 61% of passes that went his way and had almost 8 yards per target. Anthony Miller, a prospect that's still blossoming. I think a lot of people overlook him because obviously, we got Allen Robinson, Ted Ginn Jr. now, obviously adding Darnell Mooney and stuff, but Miller is most definitely wide receiver 2 on this team, and I think he's going to be just be in store for another good year in 2020. So, Parth, who do you think is the most underrated player on the team? This is probably a tough one.
I went with Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's taken a lot of heat from Ryan Clark recently, saying he's not a true wide receiver 1. Allen Robinson is a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. He's played with 2 pretty below average quarterbacks in Trubisky and Blake Bortles his whole entire career, and he's still produced huge numbers. That one year he had 1,400 yards receiving, 14 touchdowns. Last year he had around 1,100 yards with 7 touchdowns. 2 really great years with below average quarterbacks, you could say. I'm not trying to say Mitchell Trubisky's a great quarterback. He is and hasn't been so. And same with Blake. So Allen Robinson, if you pair him up with one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, I mean, he could be a top 3, top 2 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the wide receiver core in general, I think, is overlooked a little bit. Next, we've got the best player, and I think this is honestly a really easy choice for me and Parth. Parth, you go with Khalil Mack here. Yeah, same here. So I'm the only one that needs to talk about him if that's the case. But looking at Mack, I mean, obviously traded for him in 2018. Since then, he's made two Pro Bowls and made an All-Pro team. Really, absolutely an incredible player. I mean, you look at him, 21 sacks in 2 years in Chicago. Looking at forced fumbles, 11 forced fumbles in 2 seasons. Not to mention the tackles, 94 tackles in 2 years, 18 tackles for loss, 32 quarterback hits, and he didn't have much help there in 2019, with Floyd not producing and Hicks going down with a dislocated left elbow. So looking at Khalil Mack in 2020, Hicks is back healthy. You add Robert Quinn, I think Khalil Mack is a beast. We can both agree with that one. And he's set to do some more really good things here in 2020. Parth, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I think he's a top 10 player in the league or top 3 defensive player in the league as well. So, blessed to have him as a Bears player.
100,000%. Couldn't agree with you more on that one. Next, we've got the key new addition. And we just spoke about Khalil Mack, so how fitting is it that my key addition is going to be Robert Quinn? I mean, you look at Robert Quinn throughout his time in the league, has been a very productive player wherever he's been. 2013 at St. Louis, was an All-Pro and Pro Bowler, 19 sacks, 23 tackles for a loss. You look at him in 2019, in retrospect, when he pairs up with DeMarcus Lawrence, he has 11.5 sacks and 13 tackles for loss with 22 quarterback hits, and didn't have nearly as many snaps as he did during that 2013 season. Has shown that he can be really productive against one-on-one coverage. Also pretty solid in the run game. A lot of people, the one thing they can say about Floyd is he was solid against the run game, but this is not only going to open up an incredible amount of opportunities for Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack with Robert Quinn being there, but I also think Robert Quinn is going to continue to get one-on-one looks. You really can't block Akeem Hicks, Robert Quinn, and Khalil Mack, so one of them's going to get open, and just in general, having that three-headed monster there on the defensive line, we haven't even mentioned Eddie Goldman. Having that three-headed monster and Eddie Goldman, it's going to open up opportunities for literally anyone at any time. So there's going to be a ton of opportunities to get sacks and tackles for loss. And overall, I think it just makes this defensive line so much better. Probably one of the best in the league. Parth, what do you think? Who's the key offseason addition for the Bears?
I also went with Robert Quinn. I feel like Khalil Mack gets his side piece with him now. Him, Akeem, and Robert Quinn will do some damage to the opposing teams and opposing quarterbacks. Last year the Bears really lacked with another pass rusher with Leonard Floyd not being able to do his job. Only getting 3 sacks. With Khalil Mack on the other side, you got to help him out. This is more like a Bradley Chubb and a Von Miller type thing going to happen here in Chicago, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Next, we have the player that could surprise during 2020. I went with Jermaine Ifedi here. This is a very controversial pick, 31st overall pick in the 2016 NFL draft by the Seattle Seahawks. That being said, looking at Ifedi, in 2019 at tackle, he was 13th. He had 13 penalties, which is tied with Charles Leno for 5th overall and also allowed 6 sacks. Not good whatsoever. But that being said, he's coming to Chicago. He's moving back to guard, somewhere where he easily performed best during his years in Seattle, and he hasn't played there since 2016, which worries me a little bit. But that being said, new run game coordinator, new offensive tackle coach in Chicago with Juan Castillo. He really believed in Ifedi, and that stands out to me. So, you know what? This could be something that goes down where Ifedi isn't productive and he leaves after a year. I mean, he's here for basically no money. But he could also turn into something that surprises us Bears fans, and he'd be a decently productive guard there in Chicago. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Larry Warford. It was reported that the Bears were in on him and out on him at the same time. But as of right now, I think Ifedi's probably the lead to start at guard, and I really do think he's someone that could surprise fans. So, Parth, I'm going to pass it back to you. Who is a player that you think could surprise fans this offseason or during this upcoming season?
I went with wide receiver Riley Ridley. I really think Ridley has one of the most potentials in the NFL. I mean, we saw it, I think, week 17 or week
Week
17
17
against
in Minnesota,
Minnesota.
yeah.
Yeah, he had 3 catches for 54 yards, and he came up huge on that 4th and 9 play. I remember for Trubisky, Ridley kept running his route so Trubisky could feed him the ball for a first down, which eventually led to a game-winning field goal. I think Ridley, coming out of college, was one of the best route runners, and he has size and potential. I remember when the year before the Bears were looking at his brother Calvin, and then we picked Riley up the year after, where I thought it was a steal in the 4th round. And I think if he gets more playing time this year, he can definitely put up some big numbers. And he has wide receiver 3 potential for the Bears.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the wide receivers on the roster, it's going to set up to be a very good competition there in training camp, and we'll have to see if Riley Ridley can end up earning more snaps. We've got 2 more Takes a Leap and Prove It year. For Takes a Leap, I'm going to go with David Montgomery. Behind the 29th ranked offensive line in the league there in 2019, he had 889 rushing yards, 185 receiving yards, and overall, I think that is 7 touchdowns. Over 1,000 all-purpose yards from scrimmage. I think it only gets better. He did fumble it twice, but that being said, he's shown that he's a viable threat in the receiving game, catching over 70% of passes, almost 4 yards per rush. I think it's only going to get a little bit better for him. He had 55 rushing yards per game. I think this line just needs to be better, and I really think he will take a jump. And overall, I mean, he's just going to continue to get better at his craft. He's going to be the premier back in Chicago regardless. We can talk about Tariq Cohen and whether he'll be on the Bears in 2021 at another date, but I think down the road, the role for David Montgomery in this offense continues to increase, not only because it helps open up the receiving game, but it just gives the receivers and the quarterback some time to breathe there when you're not throwing the ball as much as we were in 2019. So I think David Montgomery absolutely takes a jump in 2020. Parth, what do you think? Who takes a leap next season?
I also said David Montgomery. The offensive line struggled last year. Now bringing in Bill Lazor and Juan Castillo is changing up the run game coordination. Mark Helfrich ran some different sets last year, so now we got a different run game scheme, which definitely should benefit David Montgomery and this offensive line, hopefully. And it can't get much worse than last year. I'm not gonna lie to you, but David Montgomery wasn't that good last year. I mean, it's not his fault either. The offensive line was one of the worst in the league, so you can't blame Montgomery. But he was not been able to produce as well. Matt Nagy's play calling was questionable at times too. He would ditch the run game after 2 or 3 bad runs. Which is something you cannot do in the NFL, especially with Trubisky as your quarterback. You can't become pass dependent with Mitchell Trubisky. You got to balance it up. So I think the Bears take a Vikings type of approach, a lot more play action, a lot more balanced play calling, which helps Montgomery and the quarterback out.
Yeah, so we've got one more to go to, which is, I believe it is Prove It Year Player. This is an interesting one. I chose Buster Skrine here. So when Buster Skrine came to Chicago, he signed a 3-year contract with $8.5 million in guarantees and a $5.5 million signing bonus. It's not me saying that Skrine wasn't productive. I'm being completely honest here. He had 0 interceptions, only 5 passes defended, 48 tackles in Chicago. It's not me saying that he didn't produce, and he frankly didn't really produce, but he didn't do much in general. I mean, I think it's kind of confusing what I'm saying here, but 3 years, $8.5 million, just under $3 million a year. I think he's a player that could be cut if he doesn't step up in 2020, just because we have young guys like Kindle Vildor, a prospect I really like now, like Duke Shelley, like Kevin Tolliver, like Steven Denmark, that all want to step in and could be fine there probably at that slot corner position. Kindle Vildor probably the one that stands out the most to me. It's nothing against Skrine. I actually think he was decent last year when he was thrown at. In some instances, he was better than others. But that being said, we're paying him about $3 million a year. I just think that's a decent amount of money that could be saved. So if Buster Skrine doesn't step up and prove it in 2020, I would probably be one to say move on from him. So that's my prove it player for 2020, and that's going to cap off my list. We've got one more, though. Parth, who is your prove it year player for 2020?
I said quarterback Mitchell Trubisky. I feel like if Trubisky can excel, this team would be a much better team at the end of the day. You know, if Trubisky's the quarterback, the Bears have the quarterback for the future and don't have to look at the draft possibly next year or the year after. You know, Nick Foles is already aging if you look at it that way. So if Mitchell Trubisky can prove himself to become a quarterback for the future, it not only helps his career, it helps the Bears. I feel like in 2018 when he was the quarterback for the Bears, yes, he was inconsistent at times, but I had no problems with him and was never worried about the quarterback situation. So if he can play like 2018 or even better, which I think he can, he has the potential. He had the traits coming out of college. He just needs to show them. You know, I was actually looking at tape from his preseason, from his rookie year, and he looked phenomenal. You know, he was a lot of play action was called during that preseason. And it was like almost every other play was play action, and he looked super accurate throwing those things. So hopefully Matt Nagy and Trubisky can get their things worked out and call the plays that Trubisky wants, and hopefully he can take that leap that we all hoped he would have taken last year.
I mean, 2020 really is going to be make it or break it for Mitchell Trubisky. It's either he wins the job or he's basically out of Chicago if Nick Foles can stay healthy. So out of all the players, I agree with you. That probably is the most important one. Really needs to prove it or else his time in the Windy City might be coming to a close. That'll pretty much do it for this one, guys. Comment below in the comments who your players were for all of these. Who's the most overrated, underrated, prove it year, key addition. Do our list. Do it in the comments. We want to see what you guys have to say. Once again, do us a favor. Smash a like on this video and subscribe if you're new. We're trying to hit 1.5K by this weekend. Also, click the bell for notifications whenever we post. If you would like more content from us, head over to beardown.com. You can find columns, articles, and blogs on there. We're really starting to get the writing going now that we're entering the summer. Definitely putting out a ton of stuff on there every week. You can also find a link to Parth and I's Instagram fan pages in the description, and you could follow the podcast on Instagram and Twitter at BearDown. Parth Shaw, I feel like it's our first time in a while not recording late at night, but any last words?
I was going to say I was about to head out, but you really can't even head out. It's super gloomy outside, so I guess I'm trapped in these four walls.
Not even a good day to DoorDash with all the slushy rain outside. But a good day to stay in, a good day to be productive, and I guess just grind on this Bears stuff because I got no more school. And well, that'll pretty much do it for this one, guys. Hopefully getting closer and closer to getting out of this quarantine. Do us a favor, continue to stay safe, and as always, Bears fans, bear down. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.